of selecting, we're going to talk about the lasso tools. And those are found in your toolbox right here. There's 3 of them. There's the lasso tool, polygonal lasso tool, and the magnetic lasso tool. So let's start with just a regular lasso. Well, if I zoom in on an area here, we'll talk about viewing and zooming in a different portion. Essentially, the lasso tool is a freeform tool. So what I've done here is I've click and hold with my mouse, and it starts a selection. It does a basic line. It's kind of smooth. It's nice. Fairly easy to use. So I can trace an object area, and again, I'm going to go back to the start position, basic start position. As soon as I let go, it creates a selection. If I were to only do a portion of the selection, so let's just say I went and selected down this area, and I were to let go here, what it does, it creates a straight line from the end point to the start point of the selection. So you'll see it'll cut a straight line over to the start of the selection. Control D, of course, is going to deselect. We know that from part 1. So that's the first lasso. Typically, I don't use it as a selection tool. I use it to modify existing selections to fine-tune them to what I want. But we'll talk about that coming up in part 5, actually. Let's look at the polygonal lasso. Now, this one's a little bit different. With the normal lasso, I just click and hold. We would drag to create a selection. With the polygonal lasso, what I do is I click once and it actually starts creating a selection as a line. So I click once and I click again to set anchor points as we go around whatever it is I want to select. So I'm just clicking as I go here, and you see it's connecting these straight lines together. When I get to the start, you'll see that little circle appears next to my lasso. You see that little circle appearing? There you go. That means we're going to close the selection. So if I was to click there, it finishes and creates that selection. If I was clicking along and I simply wanted to go back to where I started quickly, what you can do is you can actually just double click, and that'll create a straight line back to your start point. So double click would close the selection. The last tool you have is the magnetic lasso. Now, I would say that this one is, I would say, more convenient or more popular to actually select irregular shaped objects. What it does is going to grab onto the, I'm going to call it the edge of color, or the border between one color and another. So you can actually use it to grab shapes. Now, that one was the white background, so let's just use this grapefruit here. How this lasso works is you would click once to start a selection, and now you have to be careful where you move your mouse. So I'm going to move my mouse in the general area of the shape I want to select. Okay, you see it's actually kind of grabbing to that edge of color. You can see I'm not even that close and it's grabbing onto it. If I get to a particularly difficult spot, I can go slow and I can click, and what it does is it sets anchor points as I go. So I can click in more difficult spots. In easier spots, it's going to automatically set anchors for me. So as I work my way around, and I'm not clicking and dragging, I will have, I'm just clicking once, and now I've activated the selection. And watch, when I get back to my start point, there's the circle again to close the selection. So if I click once at that point, it closes the selection, and we're done. Same as with the other tools. If I am selecting along, let's just do a quick selection here, okay? And I wanted to go back to my start point, well, I can double click, and that's going to draw essentially a straight line back to my start point. One other thing when using this lasso as well as the polygonal lasso, if you're ever going along and you simply want to bail out, I'd like to stop now, I don't even want to make a selection, you can always hit the escape key on your keyboard, and that's going to stop the selection, allowing you to start again and start fresh. So there you have it. Those are your lasso tools. Typically I use these to modify existing selections, and we'll talk about that later, but that's a nice little introduction to how to use them and where you might find them useful for making selections in Photoshop.